On the 25th of January 2011, the people of Egypt took the leadership of their country to task. They came out in their thousands, demanding that their ruler of 30 years step down. These familiar scenes were broadcast from Tahrir Square in Cairo and resulted in President Hosni Mubarak and his cabinet giving in to the people of Egypt. 1 month later, I found myself on a plane to Cairo to document a disaster relief operation put in place at short notice by Four Paws International Animal Welfare Organization. In 2010, 14.5 million tourists visited Egypt. Overnight, tourism vanished from the country. The horses and camels that had serviced that industry bore the brunt of the revolution that forgot about them and left them to starve.
Our main mission here is to support the locals here who have many horses and camel and donkeys. There is 0% of tourists now in this area. The people are not able to feed these animals, so we are here to help them with food and with medicine.
My noble quest to film the attempts to save these animals got off to a bad start.
Well, this is a first for me. I'm recording this on my cell phone because I brought 2 cameras along and they were both confiscated. So I am equipmentless.
Time didn't stand still for me, and I had little option except to continue filming using the poor quality video camera on my smartphone.
Through the haze in the distance over there is where a lot of this disaster relief operation is going to be happening. It's very close to the pyramids.
The team met in the tourist area of Giza to begin the relief operation. The plan was to start by treating the frailest animals whose condition was deteriorating daily. A group of volunteer vets from Cairo worked with the Four Paws vets to enable the team to treat a large amount of animals in a short space of time. The most important part of the mission was to get food to the starving animals as quickly as possible. Under normal circumstances, these horses would have been carrying some of the millions of tourists that visit the pyramids of Giza every year. Now the streets stood eerily quiet.
That's the morning of my second day in Egypt. I still haven't got my camera. We just come through to the area where the guys are going to start treating animals. I'm going to be joining a driver and hopefully going through the customs to collect my equipment. This little phone is really impossible to work with.
It took over an hour to reach the airport. 1,200 euros later, I did get my gear. I had to land running as the action started immediately. I just got back from the airport. The guy's come up to me and says he's got something to show me. So we'll go and see. There are some 40,000 families in this area with an average of 5 persons per family, all reliant on their animals being kept busy by the tourist trade. What I saw next hammered home the impact of the revolution on the animals serving that trade. It is a mind-numbing sight. I'm surrounded by some 350 horse carcasses, a number that grows daily. Locals pile grass onto the dead horses and set it alight to prevent the stench from getting unbearable. The smell of burning horseflesh is horrendous. What actually happened here and what is the situation in your neighborhood?
Because there is no business. And there is the people who don't have money to feed the horses or to give him tablets or something like this. The horses is dead and he don't find food, so he's died.
When did this start to happen?
From last month, from like 25 days ago.
With regular monotony, the horses that once carried excited tourists to the 6,500-year-old pyramids are carted off to the rapidly filling horse cemetery. The task over the next few days is a massive one. Tomorrow the operation gets into full swing. Horses and camels are to be given the lifeline they so desperately need. The next morning, the haze that hangs over Cairo had been blown away by overnight winds. The ancient wonders of the world stood silent. In the streets around the pyramids, volunteers started to arrive to begin the life-saving disaster relief efforts. During the revolution, there was a total shutdown on any internet use, cell phones, everything was shut down. The outside world really struggled to get images out of here. Obviously that has all changed now. An interesting thing is that there's a whole group of people who've arrived here to do volunteer work on this project. And they all heard about this on Facebook. And it just shows you the social networking. I mean, when it's up and running, it works brilliantly. Today, they would treat the camels of the region. I took the opportunity to ask one of the student vets why he had volunteered his services.
In my opinion, يعني حضرتك veterinary medicine is more smart than the doctor. The doctors that deal with people. People can speak, can say what they are suffer from, but these animals can't speak. We are here to help poor people. These people can't pay to help their animals. What they depend on their living.
The volunteers were given a briefing as to what the day would entail. The briefing included a warning about the dangers of working with camels, something that was really necessary. The last time I heard a sound like this was when I had a badly blocked drain. I can now see why that briefing was necessary. These camels are formidable animals. They have got teeth I never knew these things had. I would really hate to be on the receiving end of a bite of one of them. The camels were given appropriate inoculations and dewormed. The vets from Four Paws were on hand to teach the locals the right way to treat the animals. One of the problems the team encountered were open sores hidden beneath the heavy saddles that the camels carried on their backs. This is the camel the guys were treating with a wound on its back, and as you can see, the guys have already gone. They put the blanket on, put the saddle on, so it must be really frustrating for these vets. They tell the guys what to do, but nobody really seems to take notice. The treatment continued for most of the day. Hundreds of camels received medical care from the dedicated team.
It was a tough day, a lot of camels, only camels. We didn't have horse today. A lot of wounds, but we had a lot of help from the students, veterinary students from Cairo.
That evening, I decided to make my way to Tahrir Square, which itself is becoming a tourist attraction for local tourists. The most dangerous thing about this disaster relief operation is negotiating Cairo's traffic. This is like madness, man. There's all sorts of whoa. Safely through. There is apparently a risk to foreign-looking camera crews in the square. The masses occupy this space 24/7. An informal infrastructure supports the demonstrators. This is a square that everybody's seen on their television channels, Tahrir Square. This is where it's all been happening. We've been far away from here looking at all the animals. This feeling of revolution is very much in the air, day in and day out. We've just come through to find something to eat, and I just thought, I just got to whip the camera out and try and get some visuals. But there's not a lot of media here, and so one still has to be a little bit careful. One's not quite sure how people are going to react when they see a camera. The next morning, we found ourselves back on the deserted streets. Today, donated feed would be distributed to the camels, and a suitable distribution point was a priority. In order to avoid chaos, a site about 1 kilometer away from the camel treatment site was chosen. How it's going to work, the guys with the camels are down that end making a big noise. They come over here, they register. After that, they go a little bit down the road that way, where the camels get treated. From there, they go to where the van is parked a couple of k's away, and they collect their food. That way, you're going to stop any mayhem happening, hopefully. The bemused-looking recipients of the feed waited patiently. Finally, the long-awaited distribution began and progressed smoothly throughout the day. After being spat at and kicked by camels all day, I took some time out to see how many tourists were visiting the Great Pyramids. It was then that I saw the extent of the problem experienced by the locals. I've never been into this area around the pyramids before, and so I can't imagine what it must be like when it is teeming with tourists. But here you can see the problem that the guys who work in the vicinity are facing. There's no one here. For me, it's fantastic. It is really amazing, mind-blowing. But you do have to feel for everybody who relies on this industry. There's a terribly sad story unfolding here. When the expats left, they left their pets behind, and those animals, domestic pets, were left to fend for themselves on the streets of Cairo.
I suffered about this because, I'm working in private practice, and then most of the people in one day, they need to be evacuated from the country. So they have either to leave their bed, or actually some of the owner told me to put them to sleep, which is I do refuse this.
Rania distributed these pamphlets in the areas that the pets were found. She has not had any response. Over the last couple of days, the team has been concentrating on camels. And camels are pretty hardy animals. They're used to the desert and extreme temperatures and situations. Today they're going to be working on horses, which is a totally different case scenario. These animals are a lot more sensitive, and so different treatment is used.
Of the diseases is different as the camels. Camels most common manges and deworming, but horses more common lameness and the blood parasites like babesia and colic. Different methods for treatment.
The condition of the horses is heartbreaking. The locals have reduced feed rations to less than half of that which is needed to sustain these animals. These horses are on death's doorstep. It would not be long before some of them ended up on the grisly funeral pyre a few blocks away. The vets and volunteers try their very best to treat as many horses as possible. In the shadow of the Great Pyramid, horse feed had arrived at the feeding site. Word got to the locals and they came en masse with their horses. Barricades were erected to try and keep control of the rapidly swelling numbers. From my vantage point, it was plain to see that it would take level heads to keep control of what was becoming a tense situation. Dr. Amir Khalil spent time calming the crowds, telling them that there was enough food for everyone. A disturbance on the far side of the small square caught our attention. My camera had been in this spot minutes earlier. Now a horse had collapsed.
What does it look like happening to this horse, Amir?
I don't know yet, but he's in the, I will say he's dying now. I will try, if we have this few seconds, special medicine, if one of the colleagues, maybe we have a chance, but he's totally dying. Few seconds.
Despite Amir's desperate attempts, a final spasm, and it is all over. The tragedy that unfolded seconds before is quickly brushed aside as the expectant horse owners moved closer to the front of the food queue. The priceless food coupons are handed out under strict supervision. The owners then ride a short distance to the distribution point. It was here that I struggled to come to terms with the way that some of the locals treat the animals. Four Paws is aware that it is more than just food that is needed in Cairo. Teaching people to respect the animals they are dependent on is something that desperately needs addressing. It was near to the end of another long, tiring day. I had still not had the chance to speak to someone who was directly impacted by the unfolding drama in Cairo. Someone who relied totally on the tourist trade and the animals used in that trade. Local vet Rania Kashif kindly accompanied me to act as translator to a nearby house. While I was filming around the pyramids, I saw a woman, an elderly woman on her own, and just asked around, and her name is Nadia, and she's brought us to a house just to tell us her story and on how this whole situation is impacting on her life and the life of her children. And she's got 12 children, so you can just imagine this must be a very, very difficult situation for her.
It was really hard on them because they didn't find any funds coming from because there is no working for the camel or the horses here. They died because of no food. She couldn't afford to bring their food for them because it cost her, if she would like to feed them very well, around 60 alai per day.
To put that in perspective, 60 Egyptian pounds is roughly 60 rand. The only income that Nadia is getting at the moment is a child grant of 80 Egyptian pounds per month. That is 80 rand to feed 12 children per month. It was on this sobering note that the day came to an end. My time in Egypt was done. The only way that Nadia will be able to support her family is if the tourists return. Only then can she afford to feed her animals. The relief effort had been a success, but sustaining it will cost hundreds of thousands. The euphoria of the revolution comes at a high price for the starving animals of Cairo.